Welcome to the Ask Lee segment of my channel, and if you have any questions regarding magic, spirituality, witchcraft, demonology, the occult, whatever it may be, then all you have to do is drop it into the comments of any of the Ask Lee videos and I will add it to the queue. And I do these every Wednesday, so just look out for your questions. Welcome to my channel. You are entering the world of magic and mysticism with your host, Lee W. Johnson. Keep the lights on and help improve the channel by becoming a supporter for just $2.99 per month. Hit the join button. Okay, Ask Lee Wednesday, let's get going. The first question is from student Nico 7274. Hi Lee, what is your opinion on using parts of an open practice and integrating it to one whole practice eclectically? For example, let's say I want to use the Greeks method of the petition to talk to a demon, and I would just tweak it to fit the target demon. Or using the Chinese internal alchemy cultivation to fit the 7 energy centers of the Kundalini. Also, I might be using the wrong terms since half of what I said was based on half-assed research. Okay. Alright, so first of all, I don't like the eclectic approach. I do prefer a syncretic approach. And I think what's important here is to understand, I did do a show on eclecticism versus syncretism versus something else. So just go and see if you can find that so it explains eclecticism, etc. properly. When we are incorporating systems, what we need to do is understand each system first. So I'm going to take Kabbalah and Tantra, the chakra system. You need to know Kabbalah first, or whichever first, but you need to know Kabbalah and you also need to know the Hindu Tantric chakra system. And when I say know, I mean really know. You can't just kind of read a book about the chakras and therefore you know their names, you know their colors, you know what they stand for, and then think that you understand it. You need to know, you need to understand it. And the same with Kabbalah. Specifically here, we're going to take the Tree of Life. So 2 aspects which can be related, are not actually related, but can be related in a fashion. But you need to know Kabbalah to understand the Tree of Life. You can't just, again, read a book and know what the names of the Sephirah are and what they stand for. You need to know it. I mean, when you look at the Tree of Life, you've got the 4 worlds of emanation that are within it. You have particular angelic beings and angelic hierarchies, classes. And God names, and the paths between the Sephirot have particular energy and particular aspects. There's a whole thing about just the tree, not even getting into practical Kabbalah and Merkavistic traveling or journeying, etc. So you need to know Kabbalah, and then you need to know the chakra system, which is also extremely involved. It's not just, read a book and it's face value type stuff. Then when you know both of them, you can start to see the synchronicity between them. When, however, you do bring these 2 things into synchronicity, you still need to recognize that they are not Kabbalistic. It is not the synchronistic form. It is not Kabbalistic and it is not Tantric. It's a combination of both which becomes something else. At the same time, You need to recognize the Kabbalistic within it, and you need to recognize the Tantric within it. And through that, honoring those things. Now, a lot of people are going to disagree with me here, and I completely understand why. This is cultural appropriation. All right, you are taking a system and you are mashing it up to make it fit something else, and that in many ways becomes very disrespectful of the system. But if you are going to do this, I would rather suggest that you do it in a respectful manner. So you can take the Sephira on the Tree of Life and you can equate them with the chakra system. A lot of people have. I don't think everybody got it quite right. When we look at the chakra system, we look at the 7 chakras. People forget about Bindu and Lalana, which is a whole. The Bindu is at the back of the head. It's a small little dot. It receives energy from the moon, which becomes Amrita, or ambrosia, as the Greeks called it, which then drips down, and there's Lalana, another chakra just before the throat chakra, which then collects Amrita, or the nectar, and it acts as a reservoir. If it's used properly, it can it's said to create everlasting life. But people forget about these. There's not just the 7 chakras. There's tons and tons of chakras. But in the actual Kundalini tantric system, you have a very specific focus on Bindu, and therefore Lalana, and then through to the throat chakra. And people forget about this. Because they don't study. They don't really know what they're doing. They just, as I said, a lot of people just read a book and they think they know what the system is. There's 7 chakras and they do this and they do that. They haven't really gone deep into what's actually going on. So this is why I say you need to know the systems, both systems, before you try and bring them into synchronicity. And if you're going to do that, again, as I said, make sure you've got tons and tons of respect for the systems themselves. Don't start saying that because you've synchronized 2 systems, you are now practicing some kind of form of Kundalini Tantra or Kabbalistic practice, because you're not. This is different. It is very different, but at the same time, you need to respect those traditions. So I think that kind of covers that question anyway. All right. So next question is from Bombast8237. Hi Lee, my understanding of using sigils is you need to forget the original intention that the sigil represents, so the intention bypasses the conscious mind, which would otherwise interfere or self-sabotage, so it can take effect in the unconscious mind. But let's say you launch a sigil which represents the desire for a new job. You've forgotten what the particular sigil represents, but every day you remind yourself you're still in the job you hate. Will this undermine the effect of the sigil? And if so, how can sigils be used for things you really want? Thanks in advance. Yeah, this is a very tricky thing. Now, you have the standard basic way of working with sigils, which is, as you say, it's not actually bypassing the conscious mind, it's bypassing the filters, or what I think it was Peter Carroll that first termed them, psychic sensors. So let's start there. So you have your sigil, and you then go into a trance state, which becomes, you put yourself into a liminal state, which is a state between things. Liminal is between things. So in this case, it's between being aware and asleep. Okay, so it's kind of in that hypnagogic place that we get ourselves into. When you get yourself into that liminal state, the psychic sensors that will then, I don't think they shut off, but you can bypass them, because when you are aware, when going through your day and you are aware, You take in tons and tons of information. Every second of every day, it's just thousands of particles of information. And a lot of that information gets filtered out by the filters or the psychic sensors before it goes into the unconscious or the subconscious, depending on what psychology we're using there. So everything gets, well, most of it gets filtered out. So we don't remember. You ask a group of people who have witnessed an accident to describe the accident, you're going to get, if it's 5 people, you're going to get 5 different explanations. There's going to be slight differences and variations here and there because we filter things out. So what we remember consciously is different to the whole of the information that gets sent to the unconscious mind. So what we're doing with the sigil is we are gazing at the sigil, putting ourselves into a liminal state in order to bypass the psychic sensors or the filters, so that we can transfer the glyph, the image, because the unconscious mind speaks in terms of imagery. We transfer that image straight into the unconscious mind, and we sit it there and we let it stay there, and we do not bring it back to the conscious mind. That's the thing. We shouldn't allow ourselves to bring that back to the conscious mind. I'm sure the conscious mind is in the front and the unconscious at the back, because I'm always talking about the back and the front when I'm talking about this. But so that's the whole thing, is not bring it back into the conscious mind. So that's why we burn the sigil, we forget about what we did. In any spell working, really, the advice is always do it. You have one pointed focus on it. You do it. There's nothing else interfering. Once it's done, walk away. Go and have a sandwich and a cup of tea or whatever you use to ground yourself, and forget about what you did. Because if you start thinking about what you've just done, you're going to start questioning it. You're going to start interfering with everything, because then you're bringing the whole thing back into the conscious mind. And you don't want to bring it back into the conscious mind. And this is where it gets very tricky, especially, as you said, if you're doing something, or you've created a sigil in order to affect something in your life, but you're constantly reminded of it because it's there, it's in your face. That's when things get tricky. This does often come with practice. You'll find that as you continue practicing sigil magic, I'm going to focus on sigil magic because that's what you asked about, but this can apply to many different areas. If you carry on practicing sigil magic, what you'll find is that you don't necessarily have to go through that process of burning and forgetting, forcefully forgetting. And the other problem here is when you start forcefully forgetting, it forces you to remember. The whole thing about don't think of a pink elephant. You're going to think of a pink elephant. I don't when people say that, but that's because I've been practicing for a while. But you do get to that point where you don't think about it. So I think it comes with confidence actually as well. You do the magic, you have confidence that what you did is going to work. There's no question about it. So there's no need to actually think about it. And then you just carry on going through your life. You go through that job that you hate with the knowledge that something else is going to come up. So you don't keep bringing that thing back to the conscious mind. But at the same time, you can do sigil magic where you don't forget about the sigil. You have it displayed somewhere. And this is very similar to the vision board. It's not that you are in view of the sigil or the vision board constantly throughout the day. It's in a place where, a good place to do it is in your bedroom. So when you wake up in the morning, you step out of bed, you subconsciously look at it. You don't stand there and focus on it, the whole time. Meditating and visualizing, glancing at the sigil for like an hour or something each day. You just get up and you pass the image. You walk past it and you catch it out the corner of your eye or something. And then when you go back to bed, the same thing. You just catch it out the corner of your eye, and that's kind of reinforcing it into the unconscious mind. But at the same time, you're not consciously acting upon it. Okay, hope that makes sense. So that's really why you do that. And one of the suggestions with sigil magic is often to create multiple sigils at one time. It could be 20, 30, 40 sigils for all different things, and then you put them in a drawer. You put them in a book or in a box or something. Just put them in a drawer, mash them up, and then every now and again take out the box, go through them. If you remember what one was for, you put it back in the box. If you don't remember what a sigil was for, then you activate that one, because then you are less likely to consciously start acting upon the sigil, because you can't remember what it was for, and therefore you go through a process of putting yourself into a trance state and bypassing the psychic senses and putting it into the unconscious mind. And you are less likely to bring it back to the conscious mind because you just don't remember what it was for. And it's better to do a lot of sigils when you're doing that, because if you do like 5 or something, it gets quite easy to recognize the symbols with what they represented. So do a lot. And you can also go through the process of activating the sigil and destroying it, then taking another, drawing the sigil again, putting it on your wall and using that as kind of a vision board type thing. If you go through my sigil playlist, I also talk about the robofish and sigil shoaling and things like that. So you can put the sigils up on your wall and create a shoal, and then create a robofish that they will follow into success. Okay, so there's many ways you can work with sigils, but the main thing is to get it into the unconscious mind and not bring it back to the conscious mind. Remember, the conscious mind sits at the back here. Sorry, the unconscious is at the back here and the conscious is at the front here. So when people do this, they're smacking their conscious mind. Right. Okay, I'm just talking shit there, don't worry. Okay. One more question. Where are we at? 16 minutes. Okay, one more question. It's from Kathy Pryor 4281. I thought the ancestors were the closest to us regarding the worlds because they are the most similar to us. So if we imagine different colours in the rainbow as the spirit world, not in a hierarchy, and our physical world, humans, was green, would ancestors, fae, gods, aliens, demons, angels, etc. be colours close to green or further away? Which would be red or furthest away from us? Okay. Obviously going to explain this in my own perspective and worldview. They are not any further away or closer than any other spirits. There is no progression of closeness as in distance, okay, because there is no distance really. What you might find is the ancestors are closer to us because they are more familiar to us. They are sometimes our bloodlines, sometimes our teachers who have passed on. And we can talk about the ancestors gone and the ancestors yet to come in the future. So we have futures or ancestors which have passed away and have died, but we also have ancestors yet to come in the future. So, we can't really talk about distance, and we can't really talk about time either. In the mystical sense, these do not exist. Everything is in this moment. Everything is in this space, or everything is in the center, if we can put it that way. And where's the center? Everywhere. So, it's again, this starts talking about the mysteries and things like that. So when we talk about the different spirits, I think we may talk about the ancestors being closer because they are more familiar. They are relatives. They are people who loved us in life. So it's easier to connect with them. Maybe that's the difference here. It's the connection. It's the ease of connection. So it's easier to connect with the ancestors than it would be with gods, for instance. Then we have all the different other spirits, the fae, the demons, the angels, the gods, the goddesses, and you'll probably find that these vibrate at different frequencies, and therefore one person is going to find it easier to vibrate and connect with a particular spirit. Another person may not be able to. It may be a completely different spirit. Because they're all vibrating at different frequencies. Now, if we do class them into hierarchies with the air quotes there, then, we can, let's for instance say that the gods and the goddesses vibrate at this particular frequency, whereas the jinn or the demons vibrate at this particular frequency, and the fae at this particular frequency. Now, in order to connect to one of these groups, we need to bring our own frequency, our own vibration into sync, or close enough into sync, in order to connect with them, bringing our radio into the right tune, into the right frequency of AM or FM. So we tune our radio in order to connect with particular groups of spirits, and within those groups the spirits are all going to vibrate at different frequencies, just as we as humans vibrate at different frequencies. But there's kind of like if we have a bandwidth, we kind of fit into a particular bandwidth, for instance. So it's sometimes easier to connect with, for some people, with the fae, for instance, than it is for them to connect with the gods. Some people will find it easier to connect with the angels instead of connecting with the ancestors. But I think in most cases what you'll find is it's easier for us to connect with the ancestors because they are closest to our own frequency, if I can put it that way. And they are closer to us in relation. They were known, we have a familiarity with them, as I think you actually did say, because they are the most similar to us. It's not, it is similar, but it's also that the familiarity that we have with our ancestors. Okay, so hopefully that answers that question. And I think you had another question, which I'll do next month, not next month, next week. So look out for that one as well. Okay, so that's it for this week, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one for now. Cheers.